The night I slept in Liam's room became one of the most unforgettable nights of my life. It started on an otherwise quiet Monday. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, the ticking of the clock on my nightstand marking each passing second. I hadn't been able to sleep properly in weeks. The bed felt too large, the emptiness beside me a constant reminder that my husband was rarely home. He said work kept him out late. Sometimes he didn't come back at all, claiming he was too tired after a client dinner or business trip to make the drive. I had long since stopped questioning it, but the silence he left behind felt ominous, as if a piece of me was slipping away unnoticed. Liam, on the other hand, had been staying in our guest room for the past year. He and my husband were old friends, so when Liam needed a place to stay between jobs, I agreed. Over time, I started noticing details about him I had never paid attention to before. He was now 24, with a certain strength in his build and a self-assurance I couldn't ignore. The playful guy who used to leave soda cans everywhere had transformed into someone else. Someone who made my heart pound with confusion and, at times, a forbidden rush of excitement. I scolded myself for feeling this way. What kind of woman grows attracted to a friend under her own roof? Yet, the harder I tried to bury these thoughts, the stronger they became. Late that Monday night, a faint rustling of footsteps in the hallway broke the stillness. My heart kicked up and I held my breath, listening as the sounds faded. It's just Liam. Probably up for a drink of water, I told myself. Yet my hands were shaking. I forced my eyes shut and willed myself to calm down. He's just a tenant, a friend. But the tension wouldn't subside. I didn't know why, only that something was shifting inside me. The next morning I found Liam in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a mug of coffee in his hand. Sunlight coming through the window highlighted the lines of his face, casting a faint gold across his skin. He glanced up when I stepped in, offering a half-smile. "Morning," he said in a low, slightly raspy voice. "Morning," I managed, forcing myself to fiddle with the coffee maker so I wouldn't have to keep looking at him. "Couldn't sleep last night?" he asked. "Why do you say that?" I replied, startled. He shrugged, taking a sip of coffee. "I heard you tossing and turning. Figured something might be bothering you." I let out a too quick laugh. "Too much on my mind, I guess." He nodded thoughtfully. "Same," he said, and that single word, same, lingered in the room, heavy with something neither of us would name. That afternoon, I was in the living room folding laundry, the TV humming in the background. Liam sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. It should have been a perfectly ordinary scene, but my eyes kept drifting to him. "Do you ever fold laundry? Or is that strictly my job?" I teased, trying to sound casual. He lifted his head, a crooked grin crossing his face. "I thought that was your exclusive right. I wouldn't want to take it from you." "Oh, you're impossible," I shot back, chucking a rolled-up sock at him. He caught it, laughing, then tossed it back in a gentle arc. All right, I'll help." He slid off the couch and crouched beside me, picking up a fresh towel. He folded it with surprising deftness. I stared at him in mild amusement. "Guess there's a lot I don't know about you," I remarked. He flicked me a glance, a warmth there that raised the hair on my arms. "You'd be surprised how much I can do if I try." My heart thudded at his tone. His words felt lightly flirtatious, but there was something more underneath. I looked away, focusing on the rumpled t-shirt in my hands. "Well, let's see how consistent you are," I joked, forcing a laugh that sounded too airy. "Anything to make your life easier," he murmured. My cheeks heated at the softness in his voice. That evening I went to bed early, but sleep was impossible. My husband was out again, the bed beside me empty as midnight crept in. I found myself lonely in ways I hadn't fully acknowledged. The image of Liam's faint smile and the quiet concern in his eyes haunted me. For so many months I had been starved of feeling seen. I realized that was exactly how Liam made me feel visible, cared for. And then came the moment I never saw coming. I heard movement in the hallway, and my heart lurched. I had told myself not to leave my room, not to do anything impulsive, and yet some force inside me pushed me forward, pulling me out of bed and guiding me down the silent hallway until I found myself in front of Liam's half-open door. My mind screamed at me to turn back, but still I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Inside, a dim lamp cast shadows on the walls. Liam's back was partially turned. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, his shoulders tense. I held my breath as I realized what he was holding in his hands, A small photograph. It was of me. The edges were slightly worn, as if he had been rubbing them for comfort. He hadn't heard me come in. I watched as his thumb brushed gently over my face in the picture, an almost tender gesture. My chest tightened with a surge of surprise, curiosity, and a chilling, unexpected shiver. "Liam," I whispered. Startled, he turned sharply. The photo slipped from his fingers the moment he saw me. An astonished expression crossed his face before a blush betrayed his embarrassment. He hurried to pick up the photo, pressing it against his chest as if trying to hide it. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." His voice trailed off. My pulse was pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. I closed the door behind me and stepped forward. "That's a picture of me," I said, my voice barely audible. "Where did you get it?" Liam swallowed hard, avoiding my gaze. "It was at a barbecue a couple of years ago. I ended up with it somehow, and I kept it." He hesitated, his voice dropping to a murmur. "I'm sorry. I know it's weird. It's just that. Sometimes I look at it and wonder if you're happy. You look free in this photo." Heat flooded my face. I should have felt angry or uncomfortable, but his confession twisted something deep inside me. "Why would you think I'm not happy?" I let out a nervous laugh. "I'm married. I have a nice house, a routine." He stayed silent for a moment before lifting his gaze, his intensity stealing my breath. "I think you deserve more," he said quietly. "And I know I shouldn't be the one to say it, but every time I see you, I feel like something is missing, like you're carrying the weight of the world all on your own." I wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I found myself moving closer, drawn to the vulnerability in his eyes. I sat beside him on the bed, careful not to invade his space. The photo was still trapped between his fingers. The dim light revealed my face on that small piece of paper, smiling in a moment I barely remembered. "You kept my picture," I murmured, still dazed. "Why?" His gaze lowered. "Because I can't get you out of my head." My stomach flipped. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was filled with our unsteady breathing, thick with something unspoken. Outside, the house was completely still. For the first time, I felt like the entire world had shrunk down to just us, trapped in this fragile, intimate space. "Liam," I began, my voice trembling. "You know I'm married." He nodded slightly, exhaling shakily. "I know. I hate how wrong this is. But I don't hate how I feel when I'm with you." Everything inside me shattered. Before I could stop myself, I reached out and brushed my fingertips along his forearm. Liam let out a shaky breath and turned his hand, intertwining our fingers. The contact felt electric, like it confirmed 1,000 feelings we had never dared to say out loud. "I've tried to ignore it," I admitted, my heart racing. "To pretend you're just a friend, my husband's old teammate. But I can't keep lying to myself. I feel lonely. And you make me feel seen." He squeezed my hand in response, pulling me a little closer. The heat of his body surrounded me, and a wave of longing ignited in my veins. We were close enough that I could see the faint shadow of his stubble, the quick rise and fall of his chest. "I don't want you to feel lonely anymore," he whispered. His words, simple but loaded with emotion, snapped the last thread of my resistance. I leaned in and pressed my lips to his in a cautious kiss. First it was soft. We were both hesitant, our hearts pounding with a mix of fear and desire. But when he kissed me back, it deepened, and I lost myself in the raw intensity of the moment. My hand found its way to the back of his neck, his fingers tangling in my hair. We broke apart briefly, gasping for air. His gaze flicked to the photograph still resting in his lap, then back to me. A shaky laugh escaped my lips, halfway between a sob and a sigh of relief. "I can't believe we're doing this." He rested his forehead against mine. "I've imagined it more times than I can count." My heart twisted. "I shouldn't be happy about that," I whispered. "But I am." The next moments blurred into a whirlwind of tangled limbs and breathless murmurs. The guilt of betraying my marriage flickered in my mind, but it was eclipsed by the overwhelming need to be desired, to be wanted. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive, as though my heartbeats belonged to me again. And from the way Liam held me, I knew he felt that same desperate spark. Eventually, we lay side by side on his bed, the photograph still resting near the pillow, a silent witness to our secret. I could hardly believe what had just happened, that I had crossed a line I never thought I would dare to cross. Outside, the faint glow of the moon filtered through the curtains, casting broken shadows on the walls. "What now?" I asked quietly, tracing my fingertips along his forearm. He shivered at the touch but didn't pull away. "I don't know," he confessed, turning his head until our eyes met. "I only know that I don't regret it." A tear slipped down my cheek, born from a tangle of relief, fear, and something akin to hope. "Neither do I managed, though my voice broke. "But everything is going to be different now." He nodded, a crease of worry forming between his brows. "I know. I'm sorry if I made this harder for you, I silenced him with a soft kiss, letting my lips say what my words couldn't. We lingered like that for a while, caught in fragile peace. Two people lost in a moment they both knew couldn't last forever. Finally I sat up. The clock on his nightstand read just past 3 in the morning. "I should go," I whispered, the weight of reality sinking in. "I have to get back to my room before dawn." "But, can we talk tomorrow? We need to figure this out." He nodded and gently, he picked up the photograph and slid it into the drawer of his nightstand, as though tucking away a cherished secret. My gaze lingered on that drawer, and my cheeks warmed at the thought that moments before I walked into his room, he had been holding my image. "I'll be here," he said simply. I paused at the door, turning back for one last look. The longing in his eyes made it nearly impossible to leave. I shut the door behind me, and each step toward my room brought fresh waves of uncertainty and illicit thrill. I wondered if the hush of the house would somehow betray my secret. Guilt knotted in my chest, but so did a tiny flicker of euphoria. For the rest of the night, sleep remained elusive. My mind reeled with questions. Should I feel ashamed? Should I tell my husband or leave him? Could Liam and I ever truly be together? I couldn't answer any of them. All I knew was that the emptiness I had felt for so long had, for one night, been replaced by a connection I hadn't realized I so desperately needed. In the days that followed, we tiptoed around each other in daylight, exchanging glances in the kitchen or living room that spoke louder than words. But in the darkness, if we found a moment alone, we let it explode again. Stolen kisses behind closed doors, whispered confessions, fingers brushing beneath the table. It was thrilling, reckless, bound by secrecy. A part of me wanted to stop it, to push him away before things got worse. But another part, the one that had been cold for too long, clung to Liam like he was my last lifeline. I still have no idea what the future holds. My husband remains oblivious. I am torn between the guilt of my marriage vows and the undeniable love that has blossomed between Liam and me. I can't blame him. This was my choice too. All I know is that, for the first time in ages, I feel wanted, desired, heartbreakingly alive. What should I do? A small part of me hopes someone can give me the answers I don't have. Another part wonders if I will ever be strong enough to do what's right, whatever that may be.